I don't waste my time with the U.S. anymore. This country's finished. It's gone. The whole West is gone. I don't waste my time. You can't. The closest we came was Occupy Wall Street. That was the closest the West was going to get to going after the problem. Okay, the crooks, going after the people that are destroying the West. That was the closest we came, and that was subverted. It's all over. I can tell you that it's all over. Most people don't. They don't even know it. They don't know what's going on. When you say the U.S. is finished, that's up to interpretation. I'm talking about other things. Okay, I'm talking about the stock market will be fine long term. Okay, I'm talking about our country's declining. The longer you live in America, things aren't getting better; they're getting worse. Things used to be getting better in America. They're getting worse, and they're going to continue to get worse in the West. Things are getting better in developing countries than what they were. Okay. Things are getting worse in America. In fact, the problem in America is that you almost have to invest. You almost have to invest. You're basically almost faced with no choice. If you can, you have to invest. And that's why the S&P will be fine. It'll go down, you go up, it's fine long term. Okay? Long term. But the country is finished as far as I'm concerned. How is it not finished when you have the majority people being abused, being disgraced, being subverted, all this crap going on in the country? I think it's pathetic for any Americans to sit by and take that stuff. It's pathetic, man. It's sad, and it shows you what's come of this majority class of Americans. They become a bunch of cowards, a bunch of cowards. If they're in the EU, it's the same nonsense. Okay, it's the same garbage. In fact, if Europe, you're going to have a different extent of garbage. In America, you're going to get more scams and more BS. In Europe, you're going to get more progressive crap, more liberal crap. And Americans are saying, "My God, it's bad enough in America. Are you kidding me? It's worse in Europe." Yeah, it is. You see, the West is finished. The West is finished for the middle class. Okay, it's finished, and I mean, it's been going down for decades. So when I say finished, what I'm saying is, ask yourself, go ask your grandparents what kind of living standard they had when they were growing up. That's when the mother stayed at home and raised the kids. That's when families were, they had 3 kids on average, 4 kids maybe, right? Today, you got both parents working. Maybe they have 2 kids, maybe if both parents are working. Why? Because the living standards have gone down. They have to work more to maintain that certain standard, right? And this all goes back to what I was saying earlier about corporate America and Washington sending these jobs to Asia and Latin America, but mostly Asia, right? This is what's going on. So I'm not saying 3 or 4 kids is better than 1 or 2. I'm saying that people cannot afford to have 3 or 4 kids these days. They can't afford it. And the kids aren't even being raised. In most cases, the mother has to work, right? So the kids aren't even being raised. Think about it. The kids are in school. Most of their waking hours, most of the hours they're awake of the day, they're in school, right? And when the kids come home, well, maybe they have a nanny, right? And of course, this contributes to the societal problems that we have. Go to developing countries and see how it is. You have traditional families and traditional family values. by the way. In many of these developing countries, whether it's Latin America or Southeast Asia, they don't have feminism for the most part. Okay? They don't have a lot of this nonsense going on. They will. It's only a matter of time before these things creep in. But I'm just telling you, it's a big problem. This country is, U.S. is a bad shape. You know, and you're not going to see it. You're not going to see it until you're older. Okay? Wait till you're 60 or 70, and then you look back because it's going to be really shitty then. And when you were younger, you're going to say, "Wow, you thought it was good then," right? Most of these older people, they know what's going on. By the time they get so old, they see it finally. They don't want to tell their grandkids. Parents don't want to tell their kids. What do? You tell your grandkids that their future is fucked, that they're not going to have the same opportunities that they had. This is the problem, folks. The investor class has taken over the country. The investors control America. This is the problem. All that matters is the investors and how much money they can make. Doesn't matter if they can make more money sending jobs overseas, then they're going to send jobs overseas. Doesn't matter. Okay? This is not normal. This is not normal, reasonable human behavior. Right? And it certainly doesn't happen in the developing world. Do you think the developing countries outsource? Even Europe didn't outsource until a few years ago, several years ago. They had to. Japan didn't outsource. They had to. They were forced to. One of the reasons why South Korea's economy has done really, really well over a short period of time, there's a couple of main reasons, but one of the reasons is because Japan has sent a lot of business to South Korea because it's cheaper. You see, this whole free trade scam is all about the lowest common denominator. It's all about finding the cheapest this, the cheapest that. The problem is that the goods are cheap. And it's all to benefit the investors. And when these jobs are sent to these other countries, people think that it's good. It looks good at first, by the way. At first, it looks like it's an improvement, but eventually it's actually very bad. Okay? And one of the first things these corporations, these multinational corporations do when they send jobs to, India or where have you, one of the first things they do is they make sure that the employees can't engage in collective bargaining. They make sure there's no collective bargaining, there's no unions, there's no nothing. They buy off the politicians. I mean, it's just look. Ross Perot warned about NAFTA. He warned about it back in the early '90s. You can find, I'm sure, the debate between him and Al Gore, big con man. Okay, he was the only presidential candidate I ever voted for. It was the only time I ever thought I had a choice, a real choice. He was right. He was right about NAFTA. It's been a big disaster. And even now, with this supply chain issue, with all the national security threats finally acknowledged by Washington, wouldn't you think it's a great time for our officials to come out and say, hey, you know what? We need made in America again. We're bringing all of our facilities from China back to America. But you don't hear that, do you? And you know why? Because these scumbag politicians, all of which are crooks, they're owned by the corporations. Corporations don't want to bring those jobs back. They want to make more profit to give to their investors. And if you think that you're an investor in these companies, you're not an investor. We're talking about people who own hundreds of thousands of shares, millions of shares. Okay? So when Microsoft and IBM send jobs over to India and China, and you think it's good because you own 100 shares or even 1,000 shares of Microsoft. You think that's good? It's gonna help their bottom line. It's actually not good for you. You'd be better off if Microsoft kept those jobs in this country, right? Now, maybe you happen to work in a different industry. Okay, fine. But you understand what I'm saying. The people that make out are the ones that own massive stock, the big guys, because they don't even need to work. A lot of these people, they just pass down their stock from family to family. They just live off dividends. You see? You guys, some of you people that need to wake up and figure out what's going on. I wrote about this shit 15 years ago. Okay. 15 years ago, I wrote about things that people only saw many years later, like the wealth and income disparity, which I wrote about in detail. I wrote about the for-profit college scam. That's what it is. It's a big scam. And of course, now you got a lot of these young people who think college is a scam just because they took the easy way out and threw money away at some for-profit scam school. You know, listen, if you want education to be valuable, you got to put a lot of effort into it. And you got to choose a major that's going to get you a job. You can't go in and spend $20,000 a year at some culinary school and think you're going to have a career. You're going to be working in Applebee's. Okay, you want to work in a restaurant, go get work experience over there. Okay, and then go maybe to some school after you've already figured out the business and you have people they want the easy way out, man. They want the easy way out. And these millennials, they don't want to work. A lot of them, they're all lazy. See these guys, you see these millennial hippies in Southeast Asia, we got all this student debt. They're hanging out in Thailand, a lot of them in Vietnam, because the English teaching pays a lot more in Vietnam than Thailand. But the life is much easier in Thailand, though. But a lot of these guys, they're in Vietnam, teaching English, paying off their student debt, living the easy life. They don't want to work. If you get a sociology degree and you're spending 4 years, well, actually, sociology is probably a little bit better than it used to be because you get all this social work bullshit, right? You get all these government jobs that hire sociologists, but you have to have realistic expectations, man. You got to have realistic expectations. You can't go in and get a non-demanding degree. Education's competitive. You know how competitive it is in China? You don't know how competitive the university scene is in China, not just China, Asia in general, South Korea, Vietnam. In Vietnam, the kids, not all of them, but typically they go to school at 8 in the morning and they go home at 9 at night. You all know that? They go to another school after the other school. And they're trying to get in to a good university. Maybe even if they learn English, try to get into a U.S. college. In South Korea, you've got suicides all the time because the kids are under too much stress to get into college and in college. In China, people are spending ridiculous amounts of money for real estate just to go to a certain school. Okay? Americans, they don't know how easy they have it. That's why a lot of these people that come from these countries, man, they come here and they work their ass off because they don't have opportunity. If you're not born with money in Asia, you have zero opportunity. Zero. That's a fact. I don't care how smart you are. If you don't have money or, in certain cases, major connections with the government. I've seen it, folks. I'm telling you. I sit there and it's sad. You see these people and they can go nowhere. They can get nowhere. because as much as the opportunity has faded in America over the decades, you have to really live in other countries to see that there's still amazing opportunity here. Really, there really is. It's just that it's not as easy as before. It takes a lot more work now. But I'm telling you, you go to some of these countries, you have no chance unless you have money. And I kid you not. That's why these countries, the developing world, it's known that they have the largest wealth and income disparity in the developing world, right? You all know this, right? Why is that? Because you have a small percentage of the very rich, and then you have everybody else. Why? Well, because the very rich, they inherited their money, they kind of shady business. They're with the officials, depending upon the country. That's how it works in Vietnam. That's how it works in China. It's I mean, it's known in Vietnam if you want to get in with an official, if you want to do like a real estate, one of these Vietnamese people, they get in with the officials. So the officials, they're kind of a silent partner and they make the money. This is the way it is, folks. This is why I'm saying Asia in general, they have different value system than we're used to in the West. Corruption is is more it's just thought of differently. Having a degree, going to college is something like who wants to? I don't want to go. I didn't want to go to college. It sucks. Nobody likes to study. Most people, anyway, unless you're a weirdo. But like after you have the degree, you look back and it's like, you know what? I'm so glad I did it. It's something it's just something. Not only does it mature you as a person, but it kind of it's almost kind of like military. Going through the military, that discipline, it puts you through. If you're at a decent school, decent program, it puts you through kind of the grind, and it makes you more responsible, a more competent person, generally speaking. Aside from your major, right? It's a phase of development, I think, that you don't hear that about that, right? You can't measure that. It's kind of like liberal arts. How do you measure liberal arts, right? Liberal arts is a very valuable component of education, but it's something that is extraordinarily difficult to measure, right? It's very difficult to measure. But I'm convinced, and I wasn't always convinced this way when I was younger, but I'm certainly convinced and have been for quite some time that liberal arts provides some valuable skills that are very difficult to quantitate. And you could argue that that's one reason why America and the West in general have done very, very well in the arts and innovation, creativity, right? When we go to school, right? We don't just go and study the math and the science and pound it, right? We're in extracurricular activities. We play sports, we're in the pep club, we're in the band, right? We're in the chess club, so on and so forth, right? That's a valuable component of education. And in Asia, they don't recognize that, which I think is one of the problems that they have. Because it's easy to measure a math score, right? And a science score, but how do you measure creativity? It's very difficult. It's very difficult.